Let's start out today here with some white and yellow ochre and maybe just a tiniest bit of red. I'm going to make just the sunset portion of the sky. I went ahead just a second ago and misted the canvas, and I'll also be misting my paints. And that just keeps them from drying out, because that does happen very easily with acrylic, especially when your air conditioner is on. So there we go, just a subtle little background tone. I'll let that dry, but I'm going to float clouds and stuff over this, but it needs to be dry so I don't have any weird colors showing up. That works. Now, before we go too far, let's take a look at the paintings that you guys did of my last one, and be sure to share with me what you've done. And if I see it in time, I'll get it in the next video. Now, my background is dry, and while it was drying, I went ahead and I just mapped in a quick, very basic sketch here, which I think looks good. Good enough, at least, you know, it's pretty straightforward. Got a little creek running through, some rocks and trees. Simple. For years, you know, up to this point, people would ask me, and still do, oh, what did you paint this week, you know? And I say rocks and trees. I mean, that's it. It's kind of hard to describe it. There we go. I'm gonna have just a little bit of this orange shining through. Again, that's yellow ochre. It's not my cad yellow. Cad yellow might kind of make a purple, even though these are dry. You can still get purple. Green is what I meant to say. You can still get that green if it shows through too much, because you'll have just a dry brush blending, glazing. You'll see through it, and it will look like it mixed, even though it didn't technically mix. So there we go. I just lightened it a little as I come down. I just think that's nice. Very pale, not a lot going on. It's good enough, kind of an evening sky. It's pretty. So now I'm going to tap in very quickly. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this. Tap in some, just the muddy green there. Some indication of a tree far away. It doesn't have to be too distinct, you know, it just maybe a couple trees. Just dry brush blend that. All this is dry. Just dry brush blend right down into everything else there. You can call it good, because it really doesn't need to be too intense. People look at this area first, we did something very wrong. This is just for background flavor, okay? I think it'd be well worthwhile. I'm just using my bristle brush. You know, a little synthetic brush might be better for the tree trunk, but if it's in my hand, I'm just going to continue to use it. Mix up a bit of a purple, little black, umber, whatever. I don't think it makes a whole lot of difference, as long as the value, that is the light and the dark, are reasonably correct. And that's about right. See, it's not so dark that it stands out too much, and it's not so light that you can't see it at all. I can just barely see it. You can go 2 shades darker if you want to, but really you don't want to go too dark. And just bring in a few of these tree trunks here. So now I'm going to work in just a light, kind of a light background to what's going to end up being a dark tree. I just didn't want smash dark up in here without having some sort of softening around the edge. You know, acrylics tend to be harsh, and if you're not careful, they can be, and they don't have to be, but here's how I'm going to be careful and just, you know, kind of work back some of this, what's going to be dark, into this, and leave a little bit of just a rim of this. You know what I mean? It'll make sense in a minute. I want some light around my dark so that it's not too disjointed feeling. I think that'll be a good base to work from, and then we can pull our different things around that. Yeah, there we go. Good. That'll work. And then over here, literally, you got to have kind of an idea in your mind where you want to go before you do this. It's hard to just go up here and start throwing colors in, unless you know, okay, I know I want trees over here. In fact, I know I've got a big tree here, and so on. You see that? I'm not just doing this at random. It'll help you. So if you're doing your version of mine, you know, think, okay, I've got a patch of color here because of this or because of that. You know what I mean? Don't just, try not to do this just randomly. I mean, it looks random, kind of is random, but at the same time, it's not totally random, and there is some idea as to, you know, what's going on here. Okay, that was a long explanation. I don't know if I really said anything, but maybe I did. Maybe it helped with one person. There. Now, as this dries up here, I'm going to transition into doing just a bit of underpainting here for this, like the rocks and the grass and plants, whatever else we end up putting back here. I haven't totally got that worked out. Obviously, you can tell I do have my rocks worked out, although good thing I didn't spend time on that sketch, because we're gonna lose it. Let me take even a little yellow ochre, because this is kind of, I don't know, it's gonna have some plants on it. I do wanna have it not totally just one color. Down here, almost totally black. You can just pick up black, brown, and green. Black, brown, and green. Just smoosh it in. Good. Now, I think it's important, and I'll just underpaint the other side the same way, but I think it's important when you transition, you know, into other colors, like this is going to be dirt, and this is not going to be my plants, rocks with moss on them. These are going to be a little different over here, so the color needs to be different. It can't be the same. It can be, but it makes it more difficult. I'm going to go ahead and just make it easy on myself and begin to put both of these colors in here. Excellent. There we go. So I've got kind of a sandy color going on. Helps. Oh, it helps to get all this worked out. Now I've changed to the flat brush, and I've just tapped it right into my paint. Actually need to put a little mist in that. Otherwise, that'll dry out in no time. It may take a couple of layers, but I'm going to layer up here some tree leaves. Just by stippling. This is a great method. One trick though to this, if you can't get it to work right, you probably have too much paint in the brush. And honestly, the more than that, although that is a factor, you could have too much paint in the brush. More than that is you probably have too much water in the brush. What you probably need to do is dry that brush really good, and then reload just the bristles, not the whole brush, just the very foremost tip of the bristles in, and I think you'll get a better look. Keep that brush dry, keep the back of the brush totally dry. You get a better look. Okay, I'm actually gonna do the very same thing over here, and I don't wanna overdo, just want it to be enough. Let's see what this does. We got a little red in that. Might have too much paint. Let's just try this. Actually, might have too much brush. That's okay. Let's set that down, grab just a clean bristle brush, and I'll blend that in. So I'll use both brushes to kind of work in my tree. I think that's nice. Now we can actually go ahead and begin to paint in our little background part of the water. We probably won't do too much in the foreground, but just in the background. So I've got a purple color mixed up. And this is the little microfiber brush, and I will get that a little bit more wet so that it flows. Okay, so right back up in here somewhere. This is mostly just a big blob of dark. We've got to pick out now our little waterfall thing. This is water-based acrylics. I've got no issue getting in there and giving it a little blend. It's not gonna be any big thing to rinse my fingers off, a little bit of soap and water. That's good. And maybe it goes behind some rocks there and it comes out down in here. See that? It sure does. We can make it that way. Very subtle today. See that? I don't really want, and that right there might be a little too much. I don't really want too much water at all in the background. There. And we'll put a lot of rocks around this as well. Maybe just a little. Yeah, that could work. Some of that might get covered, especially that one. Let's continue right here. We'll get us a little waterfall thing right there. You can have one on this side. Good. There we go. Just had to add a couple of just quick details to these rocks back here and tree. Just needed to kind of see how it was going to look in the context of the painting, because it was hard to have just the highlight, or it wasn't even a highlight, but just the bright color of the water against just black. So I had to pick out some rocks, which I did. So that's that. That's all there is to it, though. You know, that's the thought behind it. This is kind of why I would do it that way. Even though, I mean, I've got clearly a blank, unfinished area, and now I've got this little spot that looks like I'm done, although I'm not. I've got a lot more work to do yet in this area. Right over here, let's pull us a little tree trunk. It goes right there. Yeah, something like that. We're not after anything too large. That's probably big enough. Let that just fade out into nothing. And then a couple, that's a lighter tree trunk and maybe a darker tree trunk over here to the side of it. Just a different variety of tree, you know? And then something big. So you would expect to see a lot of tree trunks in here. I think that makes it very interesting. So I'm gonna just scumble with my brush. And this is kind of gonna give me these little ferns and just more tropical, a little more tropical. It's not extremely tropical, but a little bit more. A little bit more. See that? I think you get the idea. I'm holding the brush very lightly, and here's the secret here. I'm holding my brush very lightly in my hand so that it's kind of just doing what it wants as I press it down upon the canvas like that. See that? Yeah, now we've got to figure out our light's kind of coming through here somewhere, like this, obviously. So I'll just sort of plan that out, but kind of dark over here. That's why you see me going very slow, because I don't want to get it too bright and overdo it that way. And I'm going to come back and put my darks in as well. And I've got some tree trunks and limbs. That's what this is right there. You know, big log or something here. Of course, this doesn't look right until you go to put the shadows. So, because remember, this is not a very dark color at all. Compared to especially my black up there, you can tell the difference. I'm going to highlight just a couple of these rocks here. What rocks? Well, we don't have any rocks. You have to kind of squint your eyes and just pick them out from this big blob of brown. Now, of course, you're going to need to put a shadow, because this is a mid-tone. This is not a shadow. And see, I'm just doing these geometric shapes. You don't have to think, oh, I'm trying to paint a rock. No, that's a good way to become overwhelmed. You're just picking out geometric shapes. See that? Just little by little, you know, even just a slice. See how I sliced it there? And a slice, and I do want to transition between my mossy stuff and, well, I'm going to have a mossy rock right here also. This one right here is going to be kind of a mossy rock, because I don't want them all covered in moss, but at the same time, I don't want them all not covered in moss. I don't know, you know what I mean. I'll just sort of do variations, a little bit of color on this, just to bring them together so that they feel like they're a part of the same painting. Isn't that nice? I'll just continue with the same idea. So I'm just going to tap on very quickly here just a couple of leaves to this tree. I don't think we're going to need on this tree to go really much further than just this. I do want it darker on the edges, and I may even glaze a little dark paint on the edges. I don't know. And then bright in the middle. I think that's just going to make a world of difference. But it's not going to require a lot of leaves here today. Of course, you can come back and add dark ones if you need to add dark ones. It just depends. Okay, let's see if that works. Really got a little too much paint moisture in that brush, but we'll make it work. Yeah, that'll be all right. A little bit more white in there. I'm just gonna, there it is, shape some of these little leaves out here on these branches. Make that work. Now very quickly, I'm just gonna add in some details by stamping with the fan brush. Rather than breaking the bristles open, I'm pulling it to a very sharp chisel edge. And this fan brush does come to a chisel edge, but you'll see that it's kind of wonky. See that? And it's kind of curved and it's got some funny things going on. That's good, because what that does is it allows me to get these little sharp details just by touching. I've got a lot of water in this, so it'll dry out all very subtle, you know. Dry out kind of transparent in the background, will show through. It'll be subtle, it won't be too harsh or too distinct. There's some dark black ones over there, just to add some contrast. But I'm just gonna do that to build up some of these final layers. But by covering up some of it, I think it'll really sort of make us all fit together a little better. There's even some kind of bluer ones, I don't know. Just something like that. What does that look like? Yeah, that's not bad. See how you have to stand back in order to really get a feel for what's going on. But that looks overall pretty good. I think I'll just add some details up in here as well. I'm gonna put just a little highlight here on my water. The only trick to this is, I'd say, make sure you keep it going flat. Sometimes easier said than done. I'm just gonna put in a little ripple here and there. I don't need much. Now, this is all dry down here, so I'm gonna just back up and I'm just gonna mist downward, see that? And just put a little mist on that. I'm okay with that. I wouldn't wanna mist over the whole thing. I'd just be a bit too sketchy for me. Because if it's not totally dry, you get beads up real bad. But if it is dry, you can do that. What that does is just for a few moments while that water is still there before it evaporates, it allows me to, see that, get these soft, see how my edges are blending like a watercolor painting. See that? See the difference between this finger smudging and this where it's naturally just diffusing out like a watercolor painting. That's a little better. You certainly don't have to do that. Now the final thing I'm gonna do up here is just add in some sticks and branches or anything that you wanna do with a liner brush. It doesn't have to be just sticks and branches. You could absolutely do ferns and other things like that. That would look great, you know, with the liner brush, that sharp detail. But I'm starting with my dark ones. I'll do maybe something in the light colors too, I don't know. I may not. Let's see, bring out just a couple of these right here. The great news is if you don't like them, look at this. You can just rub them right away. Isn't that great? That's just acrylic for you. It's one of those advantages. It has advantages and disadvantages. But that would be an advantage. Be able to just wipe it away. There. That's good stuff right there. We can definitely work with that. I like to sometimes just get up here and go mush like this. Totally give myself just lines. It just represents detail. What kind of detail? I don't know. I don't know what kind of detail, but it does represent detail, texture and whatnot. Sticks, branches, who knows? But you see how that sharpens things up a little? I don't know, it's just interesting. The same kind of effect like if you were to flick paint on the canvas, just to, like in a seascape, just to add that crisp detail. It's kind of like that, very similar. Just add that detail, make it almost look a little bit more busy, because that busyness is kind of in the foreground. It's kind of like an unconscious thing you'll see when you look at the painting, and it will look good to you. Even though, you know, you can't really tell what's going on. That busyness is actually a good thing. I'm just going with dark black right here. Adding in that contrast, a couple of nice just hits of dark down in here. And on this side as well, a couple of just big hits of dark. Obviously when they dry, they won't be as obvious, but obviously when they dry, they won't be as obvious. Yeah, you can tell we're toward the end of the painting here. That's okay, I'm gonna keep it together. We're nearly there. There's a lot of detail in this one, actually. That's okay. A little lighter color. And again, we can just do some details, you know, a little bit there in that fern. You can kind of bring in a fern or two, maybe just, I like the look of that. Just, it's nothing terribly special or anything like that. It's just there. Well, that wraps up this forest painting for today. Hopefully you enjoyed seeing it. Don't forget to check out our website, DVDs, and brush line. Thanks for watching. Well, hopefully you enjoyed this video. Remember to subscribe if you're not already, and click the like button. It helps me out a lot. Stick around, watch a couple more videos, and stay inspired.